This is Roberto Rubini, and I'm here to talk to you about the controversial global issues textbook for the EFL classroom called Decide for Yourself, which is published by Cengage Publishing Company. And I'm just going to give you an overview of it. I'm going to talk about some of the concepts and material, and then I'm going to go through just a sample unit to show you what it's all about. Excuse me. So, first, I'd like just to read part of the preface to give you an idea of what the book is. Decide for Yourself. So the title is Decide for Yourself, which means, like in all matters and situations, that you must draw your own conclusions about the information on the pages in this book. We do live in a free choice environment where we each can choose for ourselves what conclusions we should come to and what beliefs and ideas we should hold. The subsidiary title of this textbook is Debating Controversial Global Issues. Now, there are a number of theories which are becoming increasingly reported upon, and they are indeed very controversial. They'll evoke passionate feelings and emotions on both sides of the argument. But it's your job, it's not just the teacher's job, but the student's job to determine for themselves what they consider to be the most accurate. And for that, they will be required to resort to an array of critical thinking applications to skillfully conceptualize, analyze, evaluate, reflect, and reason. So they must ultimately and literally decide for themselves. So the primary purpose of this quote, unquote critical thinking textbook is not to learn what the fact or the idea is regarding each topic in each unit, but to look at this often radically alternative new data through critical glasses, observe it and evaluate it, and through a process of synthesis and discernment to either reject it or accept it. The great and late scientist Carl Sagan wrote that pseudoscience is embraced in exact proportion as real science is misunderstood. The chief objective here is to show you a different or controversial idea about an issue so that you'll be more motivated to attend the debate following the sensational reading text in the units. In other words, it's hoped that the passage and other activities will work as a trigger to give you an opportunity to consider an issue closely, carefully, independently. Through studying this material, we believe you will learn how to judge whether a story or idea is true or false on your own in today's world, where a tidal wave of information floods our senses. So, Decide for Yourself, very controversial textbook. After the contents pages, there's an introduction to the teachers, followed by some pages for the students. And I just want to go over some of these ideas because they're very invaluable. And they will help you whether or not you use a textbook for life. So the first concept that I want to share with you is called the Teachability Index. Now, the Teachability Index is a rating which gauges your motivation, your level of motivation to do something. For any undertaking you can apply this to. The index has two variables. The first variable is your willingness to learn, and the second variable is your willingness to accept change. Now, each variable you would give yourself a mark out of 10 and then times the two scores together to give you a number out of 100. So for example, if you're a 10 in willingness to learn but a 0 in willingness to accept change, 10 times 0 is 0. Your teachability index is 0. So you times the two numbers together, you rate yourself, times them together, and that gives you your teachability index. So what are these two variables? Well, basically, willingness to learn means how much time and effort, money, you're prepared to put in to do something. What is your willingness to learn? So for the majority of students, if they buy a textbook, they're attending a course, they're studying, they want to learn. So we would assume that their willingness to learn is pretty high, because they put in time, they put in money to do that. Willingness to accept change is a little bit more subjective, in that what things are you willing to change in yourself in terms of perhaps belief in order to move forward with certain ideas. For example, if you're presented with an idea and you question that idea, what is your willingness to use discernment and perhaps be willing to accept the possibility that you could be wrong? Or what is your willingness to accept the possible change in your own belief system in order to go forward? So what is your willingness to accept change? This is quite tricky, but it is really the use of discernment. And all these topics will test your discernment. The willingness to learn variable, by the way, does have an enormous impact on your own life if you take it really to heart, because when you take it to its core denominator, if your willingness to learn is really high, that means you'll be prepared to give up certain things in order to achieve your goal, be it learning a language or whatever it is. So say, for example, your willingness to learn is a 10, that would mean you are prepared to, say, give up TV. Would you stop watching TV for 6 months or a year? Just stop watching TV. What is your willingness to learn? So that's an example of the first variable. What are you willing to give up in order to learn this material? And the second one, which is even harder, what is your willingness to accept change? But Einstein said, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance. And I think that's a useful quote to remember when using discernment for yourself. And the second variable on the teachability index. Okay, we're back. Now the next concept I want to share with you is called the 4 steps to learning. And these are the steps that we go through when learning anything, absolutely anything and everything. And they are unconscious incompetence. This is the stage where you don't know what you don't know. Then we go to conscious incompetence. This is the stage where you know that you don't know. And then you go to the third step, which is conscious competence. This is where you know it to a degree, but you have to mentally apply it, you have to think about it, and you have to do it over and over again at the conscious competence level. And this will then lead you to the 4th step, which is unconscious competence. And this is where you just know it automatically, boom, boom, boom. It's on autopilot, it's ingrained in you, it's part of your very core, it's actually become part of your DNA, so you just do it naturally. It's second nature. And as I said, this is how we learn absolutely anything and everything in life. This is how we learn to walk. A baby is crawling, he looks around and he sees someone walk, he says, oh, that's a good idea. Before he didn't even know what walking was, right? And then he stands up, he tries, he falls down, he's at the conscious incompetence level because he can't do it yet, but he's doing it. Then he comes to the conscious competence level, he gets better at it, and then finally at the unconscious competence level, you just do it automatically. He's walking. Think of tying a shoelace. Can you remember how to tie a shoelace? You don't know the exact how, but when you were a baby, you were unconsciously incompetent at tying a shoelace because you didn't know what a shoelace was. You didn't know what you didn't know. You then found out what a shoelace was. You were consciously incompetent because you couldn't tie it. Say you were 2 or 3 years old, you couldn't actually tie it. You had a go, but you couldn't do it. Then you became consciously competent, and you had to think about the whole process. The right bow goes like that. Then I turn the left lace around here and make a knot here. You had to think about it and practice it over and over again until you came to the fourth stage, unconscious competence. It's on autopilot. You now, as an adult, you don't even think about tying a shoelace, you just do it automatically. It's second nature. And as I said, this is how we learn absolutely everything in life. These are the 4 stages that we go through. For example, learning a language. There's a lexeme or a word that you don't know in your target language that you're learning. You're unconsciously incompetent because you're not even aware of the particular word. You become aware of it, then you start to use it over and over again, and finally it becomes assimilated into your repertoire, and you use it automatically. Judo, playing the piano, playing a sport, any undertaking you can think of. These are the 4 stages we go through, and you want to get to the unconscious competence level. That's the 4th stage. Okay, let's move on to the next side. Okay, we're back. Right. What I want to do next is take you through the book a little bit. Decide for yourself the upper intermediate level learning textbook designed to stimulate discussion, debate. Even it can be used for presentation with your high level Japanese students, tertiary level or adult level students. So I just want to take you through the textbook a little bit, and let me show you. Okay, here we have the textbook, Decide for Yourself, debating controversial global issues. Now on the inside cover, as I said, there's the preface. Here we have the contents map, and if you scroll down and have a look at the units, the topics for the units, you'll see that they are pretty controversial. We have the New World Order, 9/11 Truth, 9/11 Hijackers, Big Pharma, vaccines, aspartame, the AIDS hoax, GM foods and Codex Alimentarius, the man-made global warming myth, the Fed, referring to the Federal Reserve, economic scam, chemtrails, also known euphemistically as geoengineering, the Bilderberg Group, and the final unit is called Freedom, which delves a little bit into the law of attraction, quantum physics. And so each unit has a reading section, a very controversial reading section taken from real media. It's authentic texts, and this propels the student into thinking about what on earth is going on, because the rabbit hole is deep, and how deep they're going to go, it's up to them to do their own research. But this provokes thought, and it stimulates their discernment powers. Following the reading, there's some comprehension, and then we have oral pair readings, which are fun. They enjoy this. It's further support of the material and the topic. And then it could be rounded off with a debating activity, or indeed a presentation type activity. Okay, so at the beginning of the book I mentioned the concepts of teachability index, willingness to learn and willingness to accept change. I also mentioned about the 4 steps to learning, from unconscious incompetence through to unconscious competence. There's some tips on reading and debating. And then on the next page there are some inspirational quotes, and this is a really good way to have the students start their first class. High level quotes which are very motivational, inspirational, and certainly gets them thinking, because there's some language here which is pretty tough, but certainly great food for thought. And I think probably the most famous success quote ever used is by Napoleon Hill here at the bottom: "Whatever the mind of man can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve." Excuse me. So this quote alone, if integrated, will provide more success than they can imagine. So there's some useful tips here and further reading references. Okay, now let's look at a sample unit. I think we'll look at the unit on vaccines, because this is an interesting unit. They're all interesting units, but this is one of the perhaps less controversial ones, but it's still controversial because the idea is that vaccine can potentially be the cause of autism and a variety of other diseases, but the majority of people tend not to question it, and certainly mass media doesn't question that. So as the unit starts off with a warm-up activity, some free conversation to get them discussing the topic and to stimulate their schema, and some vocabulary building activities, and then there's some pre-reading vocab exercises to help them prepare for the controversial reading text. This leads into the actual reading with bolded words, and there's a glossary at the bottom for the Japanese students. There's some comprehension activities based on the reading, and again this could be done in pairs as well. And this springboards them forward to the oral pair reading, which is set up on 2 separate pages for a partner A and a partner B, and they have to dictate the questions before they actually ask them, before they actually read another passage. And so after that we come to the debate corner, and the debate corner gives a debate topic box. They can select their opinions, they can discuss these, choose one of them, and and there's also useful expressions that they can use in the debate when they start that. There's also a sample debate conversation, and of course these are on CDs. On the CD, the readings are also on the CD. They are required to do some research themselves to look into it further. As stated, they should be using discernment, researching sites of their own accord. There are both mainstream and alternative media sites, for and against sites, given in the back of the book, and they're for their own discernment. So the debate could be adapted into a presentation. I've often used this in presentation, but a debate format either in pairs or small groups or large groups, half the class against the other half, is a perfectly viable option. And there's also a page for the debate section, or it could be used as a preparation for the presentation, giving topics their opinion with further facts, helping them build an overall picture, overview, and there are some chances for them to write their partner's answers, the responses, when they have to counter in the debate section. Okay, that is Decide for Yourself. So it's been an overview really of this textbook, and if you want more information you can go to the website which actually has gone missing. Here we are. This is the website. It's at Cengage Learning. If you just punch in Decide for Yourself on the Cengage website, it will bring you to, should bring you to the Decide for Yourself textbook page. And if you want to change the language, if you're not Japanese or your Japanese isn't great, then you can change this site to English. You can order a sample copy, sample unit, or you can request a sample. You can look at the instructor's site. And so this textbook is unique in that the content has never been done before. It's never been published by any independent publisher or mainstream publisher, and Cengage is certainly mainstream. It's controversial because really the material covered is only found in alternative media sites. Some mainstream media, The Guardian, for example, the Daily Mail in the UK, so-called quality press papers have focused on some of these issues, such as chemtrails, occasionally, but more often than not, they tend to ignore or simply not cover any of these topics for either lack of interest or other reasons. So it's up to you and the students to use discernment and delve into it and literally decide for yourselves. Okay, well, this has been the overview. I'm Roberto Rubini. If you have any comments or questions or would like a sample copy, like I say, go to Cengage Learning and check it out some more. Okay, all the best for now. Bye.